This is the second episode dedicated to the theme of sleep paralysis. As I explained in the first, if you missed it, there's a link in the description and at the corner of the screen. The Korean word for sleep paralysis implies it being a paranormal phenomenon. Indeed, in many stories I've read over the past year, sleep paralysis, together with dreaming, is often the occasion when a ghost or other paranormal being manifests. Even though sleep paralysis and the phenomenon of witnessing a scary figure or suffering physical discomfort during paralysis is to a large extent physiologically explainable, some of the stories about sleep paralysis does have more complex or mysterious context which can't be explained away as simple incoordination between still sleeping body and awoken brain. So, here are 6 such allegedly true stories about sleep paralysis that show it may involve a paranormal intervention. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by host, Anthony. My family home was a small flat on the ground floor. My room faced a corridor outside with a small window to it. The sliding window must have been crooked. One had to really struggle to open it, and then it wouldn't close properly either. There was always a narrow slit of an opening through which fingers could pass. One winter night, my parents often came back home from their work late past my bedtime. That night too, I watched TV till late night alone home and went to bed by myself. I usually don't sleep well, and should I wake up during the night, it often leads to sleep paralysis. That night I woke up from the noise of gusts of wind shaking the window. I opened my eyes, but I could not move my body. I just rolled my eyes to look at the window. And it wasn't wind that was rattling the window. A pair of hands squeezed through the slit of the opening and was shaking the windows, trying to open. Under the paralysis, I could not help but just watch on with terror. Finally, the window opened up, and through the opening came through a pair of arms and then a face of a woman with a mass of hair. Her eyes that were staring at me were all black, and lips that were smiling at me were slit ear to ear. I wished I could rather faint, but had to just watch on as the woman crawled into my room, across the room, and onto my bed. She looked down right on me and switched from creepy green to green blank face every time I had to blink. I could not stand the situation anymore, so I squeezed my eyes and flexed my fingers hard, which broke the sleep paralysis. When I opened my eyes again, there was nobody in my room, and it was already morning. Was it all but a dream then? But I still felt creeped out and was getting out of bed to go to my parents' room, when I found on my bed was a sunken indentation next to where I was lying, as if somebody else was lying there. And the window, that stubborn squeaky window, was left wide opened. For a time afterwards, I slept in the living room. Last summer, I and the other 7 friends went to a weekend trip together. We rented a holiday cottage. For the number of people, we needed a sizable one, and we were happy to be able to find one on unusually low fee. So, as typically goes on such a trip, we drank, chattered, and played silly games into the late night. In the end, 4 of us retired to the room to sleep, while the other 4, including myself, were carrying on with the drinks and chats. Then we saw one girl who had gone to bed earlier crawling out of the room on all 4s. She slowly moved towards the hallway and then started bumping her head to the fridge which was on the way. And then she again crawled back to the room. We just bursted into giggles. Was she so drunk or sleepwalking? Quick, take a video to show her in the morning. But soon our amusement turned to bewilderment when she repeated the routine for the 3rd time. We shook up hard to wake up from that trance state. When she got around, she started crying a bit and then curled herself at one corner of the living room to fall asleep again. It left us all spooked that we too wrapped up for the night. Next day we asked her what that was all about, and noticed not just she, but the other 3 who went to bed early with her changed the color of their faces. Apparently all 4 of them experienced sleep paralysis at the same time, and while paralyzed, they all saw a female ghost with wild long hair looking down on them. The ghost then, as if she had made a choice, grabbed the poor girl by her hair and started dragging her out. As the last desperate attempt to resist, she bumped into the fridge, which loosened the grip of the ghost, crawled back to the room only to be dragged back out by the ghost for 3 times. And all the while, the other 3 had to helplessly witness what was going on. I always get lots of dreams. Even when I catch a short nap, I would get some wild dreams without a miss. Probably for that reason, I often got sleep paralysis too. One of the most frequent apparitions I got to see during paralysis episodes was a figure of a man, all skinned, wandering around me. The first time I saw it was when I was young and fittingly on a stormy night. Ever since, it visited me on the night of heavy rainstorms. I would be so terrified, and I would just do my best to keep my eyes closed and pretend sleeping. As I got older, sense of anger grew bigger over terror. How many of my nights had the damned thing turned into a nightmare? One day, I had another sleep paralysis and another visit from the skinned man. Years of worth of anger suddenly bursted out. I twitched and shook myself to wake up and shouted and screamed so loud, enough to wake all my family up in the end. Strangely, I don't get sleep paralysis ever since, nor do I see the horrible skinned man. Did I fight it off? I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in the afterlife or spirits or ghosts or whatever. But I cannot deny that my own experiences of sleep paralysis lead me to think there still might be something more than what meets our eyes. My family home was just an ordinary house, 2-storied with a tiny garden. I grew up there into my adulthood, and I got sleep paralysis at least 5 nights a week in average all the while. I noticed it only happened when I slept either in my own bed or on the sofa in the living room. But my paralysis was not particularly terrifying, so I just assumed it had something to do with the hormonal change of adolescence or something like that. Very, very occasionally, probably about once a month, I did hear something during sleep paralysis. It was always of two young boys talking among themselves, something like, "Shall we stop now? Yes, it's enough." And that would always end the paralysis. I found it more amusing than anything else, and took it just as was. One evening around the dinner table, I got to talk about my sleep paralysis experience, that I had a particularly long one the previous night. Usually my family wouldn't respond much, but that evening, my older brother chimed in that he did see a shadow of two kids on his bedroom window, peeping in hanging upside down. While I wondered if those were the same boys in my dream, brother added that he himself would usually see a faint figure of a woman in white when he got sleep paralysis. Then, Mom joined in. She opened the door to some guy from a kind of Taoist sect the other day. She was about to turn him away, citing the family being Catholic, but he asked for a glass of water and she let him in to pour him a glass of juice. The guy thanked her and said, "There are ghosts in this house. A woman and two boys. But they are not malevolent and are actually fending off other passing spirits, so nothing to worry about them." We were amused, but didn't take it so seriously. So I became a uni student and then took my military service, during which my family moved to another house. I lived there another 10 years, then got married and been moving in and out of a few apartments so far. And all the while, I never, ever got another sleep paralysis. Could that really be the working of the house and the ghosts there? I sometimes almost miss it, and the voice of two boys. One day when I was 14, I guess it must have been early summer. In my teens, I suffered lots of sleep paralysis. Perhaps it's what I called for myself, as I had lots of interest in occult and paranormals and often tried out various necromantic rituals off the internet. Naturally, I often try to make up the lack of quality sleep by frequently taking a nap. So I was taking a nap on one rainy, muggy summer day. I don't know how much time passed, but to my half-awoken ears rang noises from the television in the living room, a popular song from the time. For some reason, it got on my nerves and thought to yell to turn down the volume. But I could not move. Well, another sleep paralysis. Like many others who often get sleep paralysis, I had my own tricks to get out of it, flexing my crossed fingers with all my might. But that day, that didn't work either. I struggled quite some time. Suddenly my eyes were opened. My bed was the top of a bunk bed. Naturally, I was closer to the ceiling, so what I saw was the pattern of the wallpaper on the ceiling. Then I noticed a dot of red light there, shimmering. Next moment, I felt extra oppressive pressure on my body. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath to flex my fingers to wake myself up, but was disturbed by the sensation on my neck and chest, as if scratched by sharp metal wire. Startled, I opened my eyes again. The red dot was still there, and slowly got bigger. It resembled the pupil of an eye. Getting more and more anxious, I closed my eyes to focus on getting out of the paralysis. But the sharp scratch on my neck and chest got wild, while the sound from the television and noise of cooking in the kitchen got unbearably loud to my ears. When I felt I could not take it anymore, suddenly it all stopped. No noise and no pain. Was I woken up finally? But something whispered right in my ear. "Not asleep." And then carried on. "Not asleep, not asleep, not asleep, not asleep, not asleep." With a panic, I jumped up and fell from the top bunk. My family rushed in for the noise and found me all panting and crying. After I managed to calm down a bit, I went to take a shower to wash off the sweat and found raw scratch marks on my neck and chest. It wasn't just a dream then. I stopped delving into occults and paranormals ever since. A friend told me this. He's a usually very serious character and hardly ever talked about his private issues, so I fully believe him. When he was 14, he visited a friend's. He felt somewhat too drowsy and fell asleep in his bed while his friend was playing a game on his computer. And just the moment he was falling deep into sleep, he felt something heavy getting inside of him. He opened his eyes and tried to move, but could not. His breathing got also heavy as if pressed down by this invisible weight. He could still see everything, the door, the back of his friend sitting in front of computer, and a little window next to him. And there, in the window, he saw a face slowly appearing, peeping inside. My friend was shocked and tried to move, but still could not. Meanwhile, the head pushed its way inside, and now the whole face could my friend see. Her short bob-cut hair was hiding one eye, and the other eye was glaring death at him, all bloodshot. While my friend struggled to get up in vain, the thing flew over to the bed, and only then my friend realized the woman's head was attached to a body of a dog. It was soon briskly pacing around him on bed as a dog would, pushing its head and glaring eye over his face now and then. But then it suddenly jumped and ran out of the window in a lightning speed. My friend was relieved but was wondering what happened at the same time, and then saw his friend turned around to him and looking over. Outside the window was still the face of the woman dog, and her eye was now looking at his friend with all the chilling deathly hate in it. When it finally disappeared, his friend woke him up. "You were mourning in your sleep. Are you okay?" he said. Only later he learned that spiritual power ran in his friend's family. He wondered if it was his friend's power that fended off the woman dog. But what would have happened to him if it were not for his friend? Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for your listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. As I mentioned in the past episode about sleep paralysis, I had never experienced a sleep paralysis myself. But actually I did get one night meanwhile. I wonder reading many spooky stories regularly had something to do with it. Fortunately, I didn't see or felt anything weird, but I still gained a better understanding the sense of helplessness and the discomfort it induces. Do you get sleep paralysis occasionally? Is there a way that you use to get out of it? Do let us know in the comment. If you enjoyed my work, give me a boost with your like and comments, and consider subscribing to my channel and share my videos on social medias. It all helps my not anymore so new but still very small channel grow. Thank you. I'll come back with something new next week. Until then, stay safe and take care.